Bud Light is literal gender fluid. It is. I wrote about this back in April, and I was tweeting about this some last night because it came out. This is another problem I got. Republicans run away from actual serious wins. Yes, it was a win. The Disney thing was a win because you had a big company that was receiving unfair, cronyist tax exemptions that nobody else was receiving. And they tried to big time in Florida against parents, and they got in trouble. And then you had Bud Light that trotted out a dude and condescended to women, and men all over the nation very chivalrously stood up for the ladies, which was kind of hot. They stood up for the ladies, and women stood up for themselves too. And now it's like, I don't know, people are kind of walking back on Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch. They're walking back on it. So I get it that they got a UFC deal. They're trying to do some damage control desperately. So they have this multi-million-dollar deal with UFC. They're doing a big $7 million commercial for Super Bowl. And they got, Peyton Manning, they got Dana White, they got a whole bunch of people in it. Excuse me. And Trump came out last night. I disagree with him on this. He said that the Bud Light ad was a mistake of epic proportions and that for a very big price was paid. But Anheuser-Busch is not a woke company. I can give you plenty that are. And building a list and might release it for the world to see. And he goes, Anheuser-Busch, blah, 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 talks about what they do that he thinks is great. And he goes, maybe we should be going after the woke companies that are looking to destroy America. I do think that if you're going to defend a company that's been in a lot of hot water, you need to disclose that you got millions of dollars of stock in them. That's all public information. I'm not saying anything that anybody should know. But no. All they had to do, the simplest thing that they could have done, and this is biblical, is apologize. Because don't demand reconciliation without acknowledgement of wrong. Scripture doesn't even provide for that. And they never, all women ever wanted was for them to say, you know what, we messed up. We're sorry, ladies. That's it. This isn't difficult. Why do people act like this is so hard? You don't got to spend $7 million on an ad. You don't got to do all this stuff. All they had to do was say, hey, we're sorry, ladies. That's it. But they didn't do it. For whatever reason, they cannot bring themselves to say they're sorry. To acknowledge beyond just kind of a shrug. I don't care who Anheuser-Busch puts in their ads. I don't care how much stock is owned by whatever politician in Anheuser-Busch. The easiest and the cheapest thing they could have done was to apologize. A simple move that acknowledges wrong. There is no reconciliation without this initiative. None. People can, go ahead and they can say, oh, enough time has passed. Man, this is like running towards the L's, man. Running towards them. I wrote about this, like I said, back in April. Because it's just goofy. Budweiser doesn't get a pass. They don't get a pass. Women are worth far more than how much stock you got in their company. They're worth far more than what kind of contract they can pay for UFC. They're worth far more than the $7 million that they're paying for a Super Bowl ad. The companies donated fairly equally to both. In 2020, they donated more to Biden than Trump. And this was all made out to make it like, oh, this was the right pushing this. We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask to pick a fight with Anheuser-Busch. Women were minding our own damn business when this beer company came out with a dude cosplaying as a chick. That's not our issue, so don't tell us to get over it now. We weren't the ones that made issue of it. But we are going to be the ones that fight this stuff. It is the equivalent to, it's like codifying this stuff in status quo. And that should not happen. The erasure of women should not be cemented as part of the status quo. People have lost their jobs over this. Women have been relegated to the bench. There's a story about, I had a volleyball story where 5 of the players on the court were dudes masquerading as chicks, and the women varsity players were sitting on the bench. Women this is becoming a huge thing. They're being subjected to bullying and intimidation. I had a member of my own family when she was in high school, and this was in Jefferson County, Missouri. An 18-year-old male, while she was a sophomore in high school, was demanding to change in the locker rooms that she changes in for sports. An 18-year-old male who was 6'2". And our family member was supposed to change in front of him? And she was called a bigot if she felt uncomfortable? It's hard enough for young women out there without that kind of pressure. The pressure that's being essentially codified into the status quo with big contracts in UFC and having former presidents defend them because they got stock in the company. Are you kidding me? I see these people speaking out more for this damn company than I do all of these women across the country and men that have been disproportionately harmed by this stuff. Imagine if you went out with the same energy speaking up for all these girls who had to sit here and rush into the public bathrooms at school and change because their locker rooms were no longer safe for them because they had 6'2", 18-year-old dudes changing in there who wanted to LARP as a chick for the day. I wish people spoke out as much for them. Or what about Riley Gaines when they were making fun of her because she tied with a dude in one race, saying now she must not be that great after all. What about the female surfer that came out? What was the event that she came out at? And they had a bunch of trans activists. It was at a Riley Gaines event. Bethany Hamilton, 33 years old. She survived a shark attack. She lost an arm. Trans activists came out to an event she was at with stuffed sharks to make fun of her. This just happened within the week. Imagine if these politicians and these business dudes spoke out as much for people like Bethany Hamilton as they do for their precious bros at Anheuser-Busch. It's piss baby beer. That's what you're drinking. You want to go on record defending that? That's what you're going to defend? You know what? It's the LaCroix of beers. They throw a Guinness through it. And then they take the water and they call a Budweiser. You're defending that harder than you're defending these ladies? It's like you don't ever want to get laid again, dudes. What's happening with you?